What's up, everybody? It is Friday night. It is From the Forum, and we are here for you poor individuals that are a part of leagues with Week 18 championships. Brent's already in the chat. Let's go. Boo Week 18 championships. I need Saquon. We are here for you people that are in those leagues, and I'm sorry for your loss of half of your roster that you're going to have to make do with backups, but we believe in you. We will do our best to help you. How's everybody doing tonight?
Man, I'm good. It's Friday. I go back to work on Monday. I'm kind of looking forward to going back to work. So it's been a long 2 weeks of just off doing nothing.
Must be nice. I've only had 3 days off in the last 2 weeks, but it was great because I didn't have anything going on or people bothering me. So I felt like it was really productive. But new year, same us. And shout out to the degenerates of Week 18. I think even if you're not in a championship and just need a little like DFS action, just need to get that itch before playoffs start.
Yeah.
I love it. Keep it going, man. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, we're here. I mean, it is what it is. You got MA football guy in the house. Hey guys, just gonna forgo any trades until after free agency. That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough because those in Dynasty World, those picks are gonna be rolling. We got Albert popping in. What's up, fellas? Massachusetts football guy. No Week 18 championship for me. Congratulations, you are one of the good ones. Dennis said, go easy on me. I don't make the rules. Dennis is in a Week 18 championship, and we're going to hit his question a little bit here in the show. The Week 18 championship is a crazy, thing anyways. Oh, and we've got Eric popping in the house.
There he is.
He made it. So we were just discussing the conundrum, the awful or some, I guess, exciting thing that exists in Week 18 championship fantasy football. How do you feel about that?
It's tricky, right? You're asking for a bit of a hard time if you're firing off any championship rounds in Week 18, but also on the other side of that coin, like navigating injuries, having to find guys to fill into your roster is kind of part of the fantasy experience every single week, right? So I'm a bit torn about it. Generally, if I'm playing in leagues that have Week 18 championships, it's usually like a 2-week final is kind of where I draw the line.
Got to have 2 weeks added together. Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. He said, let's see here. I have reasons, Tyler. Dynasty probably really isn't for me. It's Dad Bod, by the way. Dad Bod, appreciate you tuning in. He is alive and well on the Fantasy Football Advice Network, always commenting and chatting. We love the interaction. Thanks for being such a supporter. But yeah, Week 18, you're right. I mean, I've seen people, that are rolling with, CEH, that are hoping for big things from Amir Abdullah and, Michael Carter and, the Chiefs, they're hoping for a big day from Noah Gray.
Will Shipley legacy game? Like, come on, man.
Yeah. It's, but that's part of the game. I guess that is a nuance to the Week 18 is you don't know. Like, you've got to go with guys, and workload is a question. Consistency is going to be a question. Do they need to win the game? Like, I don't mind playing any Bengals this week. Like, I want to play Bengals, even though the Chiefs have said that they're going to drop that game so they don't have to play the team that has their number in the playoffs in the Bengals, and they get to play Denver. Now, we'll see if that actually happens, but, are you buying into any of those narratives, Dustin?
I am a little bit, but there's only 4 teams that are really resting their players: Bills, Chiefs, Rams, and Eagles. Everyone else is playing a majority of their starters for majority of the game, as far as we know. No one else has said, hey, we're not playing our starters. So yes, that is a good number of fantasy assets, but I think you've got to play, like, that's part of fantasy. And I don't like week 18, but in terms of teams playing, like, teams are playing to win. We're seeing teams roll out their guys. You take the Patriots, who have had nothing to play for weeks. They're still rolling out Drake May. Like, they're still getting him experience. Unless you're a team that has just aging veterans that you're trying to hold on to, you're not starting them, but everyone else is playing. So it's interesting to see teams' dynamics. We'll see if these guys play a full game. I don't know if that'll matter towards down the road. Like, does Drake May get taken out if he gets one, heavy hit? Do they take him out? Does the Steelers take out, Russ if he gets a big hit? I don't know. But that could be any week. There's no added risk of injury because you're playing week 18.
I mean, Russ won't even take his helmet off for the post game, so I don't think they're getting him off the field no matter what the circumstances. But they could try for sure.
Man, I've enjoyed Russell Wilson this year. He's come out, he's played. He's obviously it's a lot better when he's got George Pickens on the field. But been enjoying the Steelers. I hope that they make a good playoff run. We'll see. As you guys know, this show is sponsored by the Fantasy Football Advice Network. And, who knows what we'll see tonight with it being week 18. And most people have already either celebrated and they've got their trophies on display, or they are crying and they've already shed their tears. And, we had a guy on the Advice Network that said, he made a post. He's like, why do I even play this game? Like that are in that mode where they're ready to shut it down for the season. They switched over to basketball. We are watching Ja score 40 points a game, or seeing the basketball get rolling, people getting excited for baseball. It just shifts a little bit. But I am glad to have who we have on here, and the Advice Network, which is your one-stop shop for fantasy sports, is alive with those questions. So we're going to hop over there and answer a couple questions from the site, and we'll be there right after this.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
All right. Well, we're popping right in. We've got the geezer posted. Speaking of sorrows, posted 4 days ago after, the week 17 championships, and said, well, it's over. Am I crying? Am I crying? There's no crying in fantasy. he was crying. he made a post and he was like, I don't get it. I studied, I planned, I processed. Is it even worth it? And it's like, the answer is yes. Of course, It's worth it.
Well,
it's always worth it.
Right.
That's what makes it fun.
Well, of course. And I feel like because my co-host was in meltdown mode this week. He's in like 17 leagues. Most of them kind of fell apart last week, or like he had a team that lost to the Jalen Hurts like concussion game. And he was like, dude, like, why do we do this? Like, I'm done. And I was like, look, man, like getting to the playoffs, I feel like is where you show like, all right, like throughout the season, you have skill, you know what you're doing, you're making adjustments. In a 1 week format, anybody can go off and you can have a great team that duds, or you can have a team that carries you to a championship. So it's like, get to the playoffs and then anything can happen. And that's why it's like, it's not like there's home field advantage or anything like that. It's just, if the process is going to outweigh the results a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You're right. Making the playoffs is where the skill comes in. That 1 week winner loss is the luck of fantasy football. But also losing multiple years makes winning even more better when you do win.
Yeah.
You win even if you win once every 10 years, that one win, well, you ask someone who just won for the first time in 10 years, they're going to tell you it was worth it, because it makes it so much better when you win. If you win every year, at some point just becomes, all right, I won again. Like, there is something about defeat that makes victory even more sweet.
Yeah, my brother, we were in, I was on both sides. Like, I had my work league, I made the championships. And of course, I had James Conner and Terry McLaurin. on the same team, and I lost by 11. And I mean, he had a loaded roster, so I was surprised I was there. But on the same side, we got another league that's been going for like 15 years, and I was playing my other brother in the championships, and he has never won that league. I've won it twice already, and he was like, "It's my time," and I just crushed him. And he was so beat up about it. You know what I mean? Like, just it's like dreams crushed. What do we do? And I feel bad, but then I didn't feel bad.
Yeah, he's like quickly becoming the Buffalo Bills of your league. Like,
yeah.
Hey now.
We got Willie Snyder. We got Willie Snyder popping in. I need a flex without waiver wire. I have D-Hop, MVS, Noah Gray, upside needed. Thanks in advance. I'm going to go probably out here in Wild West, and I'm going to say I'm going to play Noah Gray this week out of these with Wentz, who we know can use his tight end. Chiefs sitting, I think he's probably a top target.
Yeah, if you're talking about a tight end that's top 10 in tight ends at the tight end touchdowns at the tight end position, Noah Gray has 5 touchdowns. Big upside there, especially with Carson Wentz. None of the starters. You can't play D-Hop. If they're going to rest Kelsey and Mahomes, are definitely resting D-Hop, who's a veteran. MVS was just awful last week. I mean, you're hoping he gets 1 catch for 70 yards and a touchdown, and that may not happen. So I think you're right. Noah Gray is the guy, huge red zone threat. Carson Wentz will target the tight end, so that's where I'm going as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially now that they've said that Spencer Rattler's getting the start. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with any of the pass catchers from what we've seen from that New Orleans offense. It's been pretty pitiful.
Yeah, I like it. You in the same boat, Eric?
Yeah, clean sweep, right? MVS is chasing some incentive. I think it's like 3 or 4 catches. It's nothing crazy, but the ability of the Saints offense to move the ball down the field is still highly in question, whether or not he's trying to get a little bit extra money.
Although I did say that about the Giants last week before they just went sicko mode on the Colts.
Yeah.
Dude.
MVS isn't exactly the talent of Malik Neighbors, though, right? So,
yeah,
I'll go with Gray here for sure.
And MVS is going against Tampa, who has a lot to play for. So they're going to, their defensive guys are out there trying to win that game to win their division. So I don't like MVS this week.
The crazy thing is, on this show last week, it was I say unanimous. I was on the outside looking in, but everybody was Colts #1 on waiver wire grab defense, and I was like, shift, don't go Colts. Not that they won't be good. Play Miami.
Yeah.
Play Miami against Cleveland. And it's funny. I even answered somebody on Twitter. They tweeted at, and they were like, Colts, Miami, or it was somebody else that didn't do good. And I was like, Miami. And they were like, then there was another question. It was like Ridley or somebody else. And I was like, Ridley and Miami. And they were like, well, that's not what all the experts are saying. I was like, well, if you want to go with the experts, go with the experts. If you want to ask me, this is the answer. And Miami outscored the Colts, and Ridley outscored the other player by like 10 points. So he apologized to me formally afterwards and was like, I will now follow you. But at least, he went that route. He was like, you're right, which is cool. Dennis said, I had the Colts defense. We don't talk about that game.
Oh, man.
Willie said, funny part is
in
I
a
asked
championship
AI.
round to a team that had the Colts defense. It was a real gut punch.
Oof.
So Willie said the funny part is he asked AI that same question, and it said it spoke about MVS being a two-time Super Bowl champ. Sure.
Technically correct.
That's the problem with AI is AI can't parse through a lot of that stuff like a real live person can.
I love the idea of AI like just becoming like sports talk radio guy where like put MVS's rings in a box and put Noah Gray's rings in a box. Who has more?
I mean, but honestly, that's what AI is. AI is the Stephen A. Smiths of the world who just spout out these like crazy facts. It's like, yes, you can say MVS is a 2-time Super Bowl champ, but he's not really a Super Bowl champ. Like he was theoretically on the team, but he didn't do anything.
He's more like a Super Bowl attendee.
Yes. Honorable
man.
mention.
I still think the best job in the world would be like the 12th best player on a basketball team. I could give some sick high fives. I know all the handshakes, you get the rings. Everybody still thinks that like you're secretly good at basketball. Like it's awesome.
That's funny. Dennis said, I make the finals every year, but I work my tail off to keeping up with the projections, injuries, and matchups. So it really is an obsession. Well, speaking of Dennis, I told him that we would hit his question on the show. So we're going to pop back over to the Advice Network and go up to Dennis's question here. He has a Week 18 championship, and he's moving guys around. So let's look at his starting lineup. Right now, his starting lineup, and make sure you guys can see that on the screen. Yep. Starting lineups, Bo Nix, Michael Carter, Blake Corum, McLaurin, McMillan, Freiermuth, Ray Davis, Broncos, and Richard. The matchups look good. I think even the Broncos matchup against second-string Kansas City is fine. Let's see if there's anybody on the bench we would potentially swap. So she's got Jake Bates as a kicker, Keyshawn Butte, Edwards-Helaire, Ricky Pearsall, Pirine, Valdez-Scantling, Russell Wilson.
The thing that comes to mind for me is the kickers, because the Detroit defense is awful, so you're more likely to get touchdowns out of Minnesota. And I have to imagine, being that it's in Detroit, Detroit's going to be favored. I always prefer to take the team that's expected to win in that kind of situation, and Bates has been money. But, I mean, you're really pulling hairs there. Like, if we're talking about kicker being what we're talking about here, like, I feel like you're in a pretty good position.
Well, even with the matchup, Jake Bates is still projected higher. If you're going to beat Minnesota, you're going to beat them through the air. So, I mean, I think this could be a game with a lot of points scored.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be an awesome game. I'm pumped.
He said he's been going back and forth with it. I don't think you miss that much either way, to be honest. Yeah. Both of these guys have been solid all season. I do think that Bates missed, 2 extra points last week, or an extra? I know he missed 1 extra point last week, for sure. So, I mean, maybe he's on maybe a bit of a cold streak. Maybe, I don't know. I doubt it, but I think you're going to be fine either way. Both of these are going to get in kicking range, and both of them got big legs, so you could see 50-yarders in this game, no problem.
So go ahead.
I would err on the side of sticking with his lineup how you have it, at least with regard to the kicker, right? The thing that has been a pain in my behind, my tail for rostering Bates all season is Dan Campbell loves to go for it on 4th down when they're in field goal range, right? Yeah. So like a couple of those, especially in a game that's projected to be high scoring, and all of a sudden the floor really falls out for Bates. Whereas with Ricard, I think, if Minnesota stalls out, I think they're far more likely to actually take the points. So all told, we're splitting hairs. Like, I think these are guys that, they project within a point or two of one another. But if we want to nitpick, I'll go with the Minnesota side.
Yeah, I think the only thing that scares me, so I hate field goal projections mostly because it's so dependent on like how people performed. When it's like, if somebody missed 5 kicks the week before, like they had 5 opportunities, if they would have made it, they would have had some good pointage. If I look at Detroit, like in the last 5 weeks, outside of the Buffalo game, it's been like 2 field goals or less every week, but they're giving up 4 extra points, 6 extra points, 5 extra points. Minnesota hasn't fared that much better. They've been like a 1 to 2 field goal opportunities per game, but even they're giving up less touchdowns too. So yeah, I think I wasn't wrong before, but I have new information. So it seems like I'd probably roll with the Minnesota side as well.
Yeah, I think you're splitting hairs with the kicker. The move I would make would be take out Ray Davis and put in Ricky Pearsall. I get it, Ray Davis, and MA Football Guy said the same thing. I think Ray Davis is a fine play, but especially if this is a PPR league, you're just going to get more points from wide receiver. I mean, you have no IU. Kittle's banged up, no Debo, so it could just be Mason Dobbs to Ricky Pearsall all game. He had 10 targets last week. So I think that's a move I would make just for the upside there with Ricky Pearsall over Ray Davis in your flex.
Do y'all have any concern about Corum given that they're going to be resting the starting offensive line?
I mean, I have some, but I think Corum has the ability to play behind. I mean, he played behind a good offensive line. I think he's good enough to be okay behind a bad offensive line.
Yeah.
I just don't know who else he flex in there. I mean,
I would put Davis in over Corum if I had to choose between the two personally.
Yeah.
You know,
I would err on the side of Corum, right? The point about the offensive line is fair, but the thing with Rams running backs in general, right? Like they throw so much volume at whoever is getting the start back there that I think that will put Corum ahead of Ray Davis, who, you know, presumably is going to be rotating a bit with Ty Johnson. You know, maybe we see a few other guys get snaps back there, whereas at least in terms of projecting the workload, I feel much safer in the volume for Corum.
I think Kyron scored in 7 of the 8 home games as well. Not that it necessarily just shifts over, but
sure.
Yeah. I think that I sit kind of in that debate too. Like I like Pearsall in there in your flex spot. You know, I struggle with Ray Davis. The Bills really like Ray Davis, and I feel like this is one of those games where they might just throw him out there and let us see his chops. Let's see what he's really got. You know, going into, you know, where they're sitting most of the people. You got, you know, Cook's probably not going to play. Even Ty Johnson, we may not see a lot of him. You know, they've used him a lot in that offense in their, you know, games recently, and so they may want to keep him kind of healthy too. You know, that's my only debate is probably more between Corum and Davis. The separation, I think, is like you said, Davis and Ty Johnson have possibility. I don't really know who's going to split snap share with Corum. You know, like it's probably just going to be his show, and then they're going to look to see what he's got too. So it's just if you like him against Seattle or if you like it against New England, you know. And
here's one other point with Ray Davis. The Bills have been very open about trying to get the 14th person or 17th person a touchdown. They can set the record with number of people who have caught a touchdown, and they've talked about who will get that. Ray Davis has a receiving touchdown, so if they get into a, you know, goal-to-go situation, they're going to be looking to scheme up plays for other guys that you don't know of. These deep names. I mean, we're going to have an offensive line touchdown with the Bills. You might see that, or you might see you might see an offensive line or like the 4th or 5th tight end or some crazy receiver. We saw Shivers score last week from Trubisky. They are going to scheme up plays to get someone else a touchdown so they can set the record.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, Reggie Gilliam is right up there in snaps over the stretch run, right? Essentially the same number of snaps as Ray Davis last week, 18 the week before, 12 the week prior. So he could be in the mix, if nothing else, just another denominator in the equation for the work out of the Bills backfield. I'm kind of curious, should we take a minute to talk about Russ Wilson versus Bo Nix, right? You look back, you know, this is a game environment where Cincinnati can certainly run up the score, and Russell Wilson had his best fantasy week of the season in week 13 against Cincinnati, trying to keep pace with the Bengals. Do we think there's maybe a bit more upside there relative to Bo Nix?
The one thing that concerns me is that Russ's EPA in the last like 3 or 4 weeks has been 32nd in the league out of 34 quarterbacks. He's just been terrible. And I know that Cincinnati has been like a tough, like, how do you not play people against Cincinnati? I just feel like Bo Nix has been so money that it's like, as a Steelers fan, I wouldn't chase Russ this week.
That's coming from the Steelers fan. So it sounds like there are a couple question marks. We can definitely see why you're debating on it, Dennis. But it sounds like consensus is keep what you got, swap Ray Davis for Ricky Pearsall, and that's what we roll with. Obviously, with a little bit of question about potentially Russ versus Knicks, Corum versus Davis, but it sounds like it's a little bit leaning Corum over Davis and a little bit leaning Knicks over Wilson.
Yeah.
I am with you, Eric. I like Wilson, but I don't know that game. I think I think Kansas City, they're gonna be sitting starters on defense. It's just gonna be. I think it's gonna be.
I guess that's
going.
part of my concern, right? Like I'm not sure how much of a need there's going to be. I think Denver is one of the largest favorites on the board this week. Obviously, Week 18 is kind of a sideshow, anyways.
I think their second, the Baltimore game has like a pretty stupidly high.
Yeah, Baltimore's
spread.
like 20 or something,
Yeah.
like some college shit out there.
Believe in Zap, baby. Come on, we need him.
Yeah, right.
I think it's a morale boost win for Bo Nix to beat the Chiefs, whether it is their starters or not. Especially since they lost that wild game earlier in the season, where it was like, wasn't the block field goal where they lost?
That was the block field goal.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a moral victory and kind of like this momentum builder at the end of the season. Like then you go, we beat the Chiefs. No one's gonna go, well, yeah, it's their second stringers. You're going, we beat the Chiefs. We beat the Chiefs. Like that's all that matters.
Yeah.
AI
When
will be
they're-
like, yeah, they beat the Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champions.
Exactly. When AI is writing the script for the 30 for 30 on the 2024 Denver Broncos championship.
Yeah.
A huge
That's
win
awesome.
against the rival Chiefs in Week 18 propelled this team to a title.
Also, that gets the Broncos to 10 wins. Like that's a good season. Like 10 wins is a good season. They won't make the playoffs, but that's still a good record to hang your hat on.
There.
Yeah,
I
Broncos
think,
are set
the
to make
Broncos
it.
are winning in,
The
right?
Broncos are in it.
Yeah, they're winning in. That's what I was saying. So
Winning in, I think,
the
is their
Chiefs are
scenario.
supposedly so basically if the Broncos lose and Miami loses,
The
then
Bengals would be in.
Bengals get in. So
Okay.
if the Chiefs let Denver win, then they get a rookie quarterback in the playoffs, and they don't have to face Joe Burrow,
I like
or
it.
Tua and Tyreek and that machine, Although I don't think they're as worried about Miami as
I would
they
rather
would.
play Miami out of the three teams.
Yeah, I'd rather
Yeah.
play Miami than both those teams. Yeah,
Yeah.
But Miami's got to win, and I don't know if they win this week.
Miami's not going to win.
Against the Jets?
Tua is still doubtful, right? Has there been an update on Tua?
I haven't looked. He's still doubtful. Yes, so
Yeah.
that's not great on a Friday night. You're
Yeah,
doubtful.
he's not playing.
So, yeah,
But-
I don't know if they could beat the Jets.
I don't know.
Ooh. I'm still seeing Miami as a slight betting favorite on the road. I bet that line would swing a bit once it's officially announced that Tua's out.
I think Aaron's going to show up on the H on Sunday and just go out with a blaze, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it's
can't imagine Aaron Rodgers possibly his last game ever to throw up a
It's
stinker. so.
absolutely his last game, right? Like this is his swan song, isn't it?
I don't think
I
so.
mean-
I think he's going to come back.
No,
I think he would
he'll
like
be
to come
back.
back.
It depends
I
on
think
how much
he's
money his Netflix show makes.
I think he's done. I don't think there's a market for him. I don't think there's a need for him. I think he's done.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from, Dustin. I if you ask him, he would absolutely love to play next year. I don't know if anyone's gonna pick up the phone and make that call.
Even he said recently in the past week or so, like he's still undecided, and we'll see.
I mean,
It sounds like the Jets are ready to move on. So
Doesn't he have to
He's-
go to the Vikings like Brett Favre did and take him to the NFC Championship game first?
yeah, that's never gonna happen.
Well, he's got to go on another darkness retreat first, so he's fresh.
yeah.
Well, and that'll be Rodgers. Is he'll drag this out all off season as long as he can because he likes the attention. So he will drag it out. Then he'll go on Pat McAfee and not really say a thing, and then he'll go back on Pat McAfee and say he's playing but doesn't have a team yet, and then he won't have a team, and then he'll go on Pat McAfee and retire, and then he'll try to go to broadcasting, but no one will want him. I mean, that's what's going to happen with Rodgers.
Pat
I mean,
McAfee's going to personally
this is-
sell him to the Colts.
Yeah.
So
Pat
Dennis
McAfee's
is
got the inside track to the Indy job for sure.
so Dennis did say that these quarterbacks are available on waivers. I don't know that I'm starting any of them over Knicks or Russ.
I'm not.
No.
So there you go. Even though Massachusetts football guy with the Patriot as his logo says, "I love me some May."
May is
Well,
going to
it's just
surprise
as
a lot of people next year
I think
There's
so
a lot
too.
to be excited about there.
Yeah, especially with the rushing that he has. Like it's not like as pronounced as Jaden Daniels, but he runs enough to be fantasy relevant despite being labeled as a pocket passer. So I think he's going to be a sneaky pickup in drafts next year.
I was really impressed with Drake May at the draft, like his poise, his leadership, like the way he just encouraged people around him. I saw him at a charity event with Habitat for Humanity. They were doing stuff, and he was just with Lowe's, and he was just encouraging people. Like his leadership was above and beyond all the other guys that I saw at the combine and draft. So I think he's great. The only list on that name that I'm curious about, and I don't think I'd start him over Bo Nix, but Bryce Young is not a bad play this week, I think. He's done really well the past 2 weeks. He's still trying to build his reputation and keep his job, but I'm not starting him over Nix, but he is an interesting name from that list of names that was there.
Wendy popping in. Hey, friends. What's up, Wendy? Wendy got her Deontay Johnson jersey that she won at the Expo finally.
I'm sorry, Wendy.
Is it a Deontay Johnson Texans jersey?
No, it's a Steelers jersey.
It's one of those like ones that's like the two different teams sewn together.
Yeah, like
so it's 8 teams all sewn together.
You know, it will be the only team that he actually played for longer than a year.
Hey man, Deontay still got it though.
He's about to launch the Texans on a playoff run. Come on.
Nope.
Dustin's like, I will not accept this.
I will not accept any Deontay Johnson love. He's washed. He's done. He's Jimmy Butler. No.
Hey, playoff Jimmy still gets it done, though. I don't care if they suspend him for 7 games. I don't care if he leaves every team behind when he gets mad. He can still rock it, but we'll see.
So, you know, for those people that, you know, and we'll still answer, you know, week 18 questions if you drop them in the chat. We're really happy to. I'm really excited about the playoff run. Fantasy Football Advice Network is going to be sponsoring a playoff challenge. So we'll be sending out the links. Be excited for that. It's going to be sick, and it's going to have a cash prize and be free to enter.
Nice.
We all love free, right? With a chance to win some dollars. And it'll be a DFS format, so your lineup will change weekly.
Ooh.
So you can roll with who's in the playoffs and stays in. It's going to be a blast. But, you know, obviously for those who just lost or those as the season, you know, changes, we start leaning into dynasty content. And, you know, it was really exciting this year. You know, the Heisman race was not quarterback filled. You know, the top 2 front runners were skill position players, which is exciting. We don't see that every year. You know, are there any rookies outside of kind of your top guys? Like, of course, everybody's really excited about Genty. You know, like, are there any people that you're like, you know, that you could give to the audience that you're like, go ahead and start looking at this guy?
Yeah, I've got 2 that are outside the top names. Now, Colston Loveland, Michigan tight end, is kind of like the top tight end in the class. I really like him. His athleticism at 6'5". They say he runs like a 4.7 40. That's pretty good speed. That's like a George Kittle speed. I like what he can be. Obviously, when we're talking about prospects at this stage, there's still a lot of unknowns. So we're talking about like landing spot. You know, we got the combine will come up. We'll see all that stuff. And then the wide receiver I'm looking at is Trey Harris from Ole Miss. He's 6'3", decent size. I think he runs good looking at some of the film. I haven't watched a ton of film, but I've watched a little bit on him. I just think he could land, if he lands in a good spot, can step in and be a solid outside wide receiver, play on 2 wide receiver sets, which is what you want to see from your guys. I think he could be in a good situation depending on where he goes. So he's a name I'm keeping an eye on right now.
Yeah, I think the player that stands out to me right now, I'm really curious to see what the landing spot's going to be. So let's get this out of the way. The running back situation this year is pretty stacked. It makes me very nervous for guys like Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, who don't have a lot of draft capital that's splashed this year. And like, what is that going to mean? What does it mean for somebody who's going to be a free agent, like say like Javonte Williams? Like, is there really a need in a market for these guys to come back? But I'm really excited about Amarian Hampton out of North Carolina. I think he's been a really solid player throughout his time. There's been so many good names throughout that he hasn't really got some of the hype for what he's done. But I think he's going to be an absolute smash. Probably can get him in the mid to back half of your first round. So he's somebody that I'm going to be looking at pretty heavily as we get into Combine land.
Man, I'm right there with you on Hampton. That's the name that I had circled. A guy he's got a lot of movement to his game for his size, and he feels like he's on the short list of prospects this year that can check the box as a 3-down skill set, right? And in a loaded running back class, someone that can differentiate themselves in that way, that doesn't project to be a liability on pass protection, is someone that should see the field earlier and can return value. I also Ollie Gordon was one of the star running back prospects heading into this prior college football season. Obviously his stock is going to slid a bit, but watching his tape just as a pure runner, like his decisiveness, his patience, his timing, he's just super smooth on the film. And I think he's a guy that can see a lot of playing time very early at the NFL level.
I'll be curious from like the draft perspective of him, because like going into the year, I mean, he was pretty much RB1, and then struggled quite a bit. Like, where are teams going to view him? Is it like, oh, like we see the potential from the year before? Like, what are they going to attribute the struggles to this year? Like, he could be in a very wide range of outcomes as far as like where he gets drafted.
Yeah, and I'm curious with
draft capital's going to be tricky there.
Well, and with the depth of this class, do we see these guys drop? Does Gentry go in the first round? Like it's a question mark because there's not a ton of landing spots out there for these guys. We have a sizable free agency class with some big names, Nick Chubb and Najee Harris and Aaron Jones, a little older, who can be starters. Amir Abdullah is going to be out there. He's a serviceable guy. We've seen that. So I'm curious to see what happens with these running backs. If you like one of them, is it like this past year where like, hey, we'll draft one in the third round and we don't care which one we get because there's 4 or 5 guys that are all equal and we don't need to take one in the first or second. We can wait till the third and we'll take there's 4 guys we like. We're happy with any of the 4 and we'll take the fourth one in the third instead of taking the top 3 in the second. So they could see some, and then of course everybody's gonna be talking draft capital, which I've always said doesn't matter after they get drafted, but we'll see what happens if they drop or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about this class. I'm not as excited as last year with the wide receiver group that we had coming in. I think the wide receiver group that we had come in this past season was top notch. I think the wide receiver group that we'll see come in next year will be really top notch as well. But the running backs, I mean, I'm excited for the running backs this season. You got some deep sleepers in there, and then even like you look at Ohio State, freaking with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, like both of them we were looking at last year, and we were like, oh my gosh. Then they play for the same team, and they've combined for 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns. Yeah. I think Henderson has. I think he's like a 7 yards per carry, right now. It's like you look, if you have those guys and they're not sharing the workload, right? Like, are we putting Travion Henderson in the same conversation with Ashton Genty? If he's getting, does he have 1,600 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns or 18 touchdowns if it's just him by himself? And so I'm really interested in seeing how those two perform through the offseason. I think that they're a little bit behind the curtain because of how they were used. Same thing with like Emeka Egbuka, like that dude's a baller.
I want him on the Steelers so bad. Please.
Yeah, like you got him out there, and like he's a little bit overshadowed because they probably have the best young wide receiver in the NCAA. Yeah,
Julio Jones Jr.
Yeah, on that team, and but even then, he's had like 10 touchdowns this season or something like that. Like it's not like, which Ohio State. I don't know if y'all watched that Oregon game, but I was dumbfounded. Like they came out and they were just like wham, 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 and I was like, what the heck is happening? Like it was no mercy beatdown on a team that I didn't feel like they should have no mercy beatdown. Yeah. But I think that team is just stacked. They're stacked, and so I don't know who's going to beat them in the college football playoff. Maybe Eric, you have some insight there, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's funny that the first year that we expand out to the expanded bracket, the expanded playoff field, and we end up with
Appreciate
4 of what would be the the betting favorites if we were in the format from the years prior. I think we're going to see some pretty close games down the stretch run here. Texas feels like they kind of got away with one against ASU. I don't know if they keep the Cinderella run or keep the magic alive, but beyond them, I think you can see it really going any direction of the remaining 3 teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've definitely seen, and I think a part of it's that chip on their shoulder mentality, right? Like a lot of people were saying Ohio State shouldn't have been in the playoff at all, and obviously they had to, if it was a traditional, they wouldn't have gotten in at the 8 seed. So they are playing with something. They're playing for their coach's job. Like, does Ryan Day keep his job if they would have lost this past game? I don't know. They're looking to, make a statement for the Big Ten as a conference. So Ohio State really is it's kind of this legacy of like, we need to live up to the fact that we are Ohio State. But I'm excited. We could see Ohio State, Penn State in the championship. I think Ohio State, any of the matchups I think for the championship are going to be great. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, Penn State, Texas, Notre Dame. That's a fun championship game. No matter how you
Ryan Day and James Franklin in a championship game is going to just end in a tie.
Yeah.
Like neither one of those dudes are known to win it big, so it'd be huge for their legacies.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to touch on Willie Snyder's question about Josh Allen.
Yeah.
So Josh Allen is going to start the game. The reason why he's only projected 3 points is he wants to start so he keeps his consecutive game streak alive, which is at 114 games. So he's going to start, probably play a series, and then be done. So that's why he's only projected like 3 fantasy points. He's probably going to go out there, throw the ball once or twice, and then be done for the day. So that's why he has projected 3 points. He is going to start, but we're going to see probably Mike White because Mitch Trubisky is also questionable. So it's either going to be Trubisky or Mike White playing the rest of the game.
Watch Allen breaks off like an 80-yard run, like first play of the game, and just drops like a 14 spot.
Hey, I mean, crazier things have happened, right?
He's on the short list of guys that can do it playing.
Yeah, if you're talking about guys that can do it, it's Josh Allen, yeah.
Speaking of Willie Snyder said Jalen Milroe is underrated.
Ooh.
I don't know. His ability to read the field is a huge concern. I know that he has like a lot of like potential. I don't know if this is fair to this player, but I think the blowback from Anthony Richardson is going to have a lot more teams concerned because everybody's like, oh, we'll just draft traits and they're going to be the next Josh Allen. And I think what we're seeing is that Josh Allen is really one of a kind kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you're going to see the Anthony Richardson who swings one way, but the Jaden Daniels is swinging it the other way. What I like about Jalen Milroe is he has a ton of, games under his belt where Anthony Richardson didn't. I think Jalen Milroe is coachable. I think if you draft Jalen Milroe to start week 1, he's going to fail. Like, he's just not ready week 1. I think he has to sit for a year. And I said this about Anthony Richardson. He needs to sit for at least 6 games, if not a full year, to learn, to develop, to get that experience under his belt. I think Jalen Milroe needs that. He has the rushing upside. He's got the traits that you can't teach. He's got coachable weaknesses. So you're right. Reading the field is going to be an issue. Can he fix that? That's something you can only learn through time. And I think he's going to need to sit behind someone. The question is where is that? Is that in LA with the Rams? Does he sit behind Stafford for a year? There's not many places that have veteran quarterbacks now that you can sit for a year or even 6 games or half a season. I mean,
it's not a quarterback that they're happy to trot out there next year, but Cleveland is kind of stuck with their veteran quarterback for next season, right? That might be a spot where he could sit as.
You mean they're not going to hang on to Tank Commander DTR?
Yeah. Oh my God, Tank.
He's the greatest Tank quarterback of all time, though.
Like,
1 touchdown, 10 interceptions,
3 yards per attempt or something like that.
Yeah, that's elite.
Yeah.
I said this during the combine process with DTR that I think he's going to stick around the league for a long time as a backup, but never be a good starter. Like, I think he's got the traits to be like a decent backup. I just don't think he's a good starter.
I just don't think he can throw the football anywhere down the field. No. Like it just.
So where do you see like the quarterbacks like going in like a super flex draft? Because usually top spots are pretty much dedicated, but I'm trying to think like who's the first like player that I would take a quarterback over, and I'm almost at the end of the first round, I feel like.
I mean, unless someone like Seattle take someone and is going to move on from Geno Smith. I mean, maybe you take a guy who goes, if the Giants grab someone high,
Whoever
grab
goes
one of
to
those
the
top
Giants
guys.
is going to go early.
Yeah,
right?
that's going to be the spot. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is done with the Jets, which I think he is, Jets and Giants are the two teams that have the players around them to make a quarterback good. That's why I think it's going to be the top two. Then it's going to be a fall off, and you're not going to see another one till the end of the first round, early second round, depending on unless something crazy happens.
I think I'm closer to that outcome, Dustin. Right? Like I think we're going to see two, probably in the top 5 of
Jets and Giants
rookie. Yeah, right. Whoever lands there, and just the format, right? Like there is a high draft premium placed on that position. If they're going to be the starter, they should have some runway. They've got a decent support system around them. Even if that third criteria is lacking, right? Like having 2 or 3 years of runway and having at least some promise at the next level usually warrants like a top 6 pick. And then after those two, it's probably going to be like a Milroe and maybe another guy at the end of the first is sort of the second tier there.
Yeah, that's why I think that has to happen. I mean, right, Jets and Giants have good, Giants have a good receiver. Jets have 2 good receivers in theory if Devontae Adams comes back. But at least they have one and a good running back. Tennessee could be interesting if they were to go out and maybe sign a T. Higgins and get a new, keep their, Callahan and bring in a quarterback and draft someone and move on from Will Levis. Again, Seattle has good receivers and good running backs and, has a decent coach that can coach them up. But there's just not a ton of landing spots for quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
I mean, if let's say Pittsburgh drafts one in the first round, where are you taking a Pittsburgh quarterback in a Superflex league?
I mean, I tend to not really worry about landing spot for players, but it's like, I don't think that I can take I wouldn't take Cam Ward over like Egbuka or like Travion Henderson.
No, I take landing spot over talent all day, every day, because I think at that level, like the talent differential is minimal. I want landing spot. If you look at someone, if you look at that, like Will Levis had the talent, but landing spot mattered. If you look at Jackson Smith and
I don't know if the Mayo guy had the talent, man. He had a good combine throw, but like
he's a landing spot. Like he landed in the right spot. Like Tennessee, oh God, not Will Levis Cologne. Like Tennessee was like it's an open footprint. Like they were ready. Like Nashville. If you went, I live in Tennessee. Nashville rallied around that guy. Like they were ready for Will Levis to be.
I mean, the fan base being supportive of the draft pick and the front office being competent enough to put a supporting mechanism around them are two different things, right? Like,
I mean, look at Bryce Young.
I mean,
Bryce Young didn't have the support his year one and floundered because of it. And now he does, and he's doing well. So I think support system and coaching matters. I mean, everybody's talking about does Sam Darnold getting this huge contract because Kevin O'Connell supported him.
Go down the list of all of the Jets burnouts. Sam Darnold, Geno Smith. Obviously, he wasn't at the Jets, but Baker Mayfield, right?
Zach Wilson.
If you're in the wrong spot, like your deficiencies are gonna get exposed. Whereas if you end up with a more modern, creative play caller who can highlight the things you do well, put pieces around you, like you can be viable, right? Like we've seen this now, year after year. There's some guy that was believed to be a bust that gets into a good support system, and all of a sudden is at least capable of administering an NFL offense.
Yeah,
and I'll say
more true for QBs than the other positions. I just don't think the Jets or the Giants really scream quarterback stability for me right now.
No, they don't. I mean, that's why I think I will avoid those players, but I think they'll go high in Superflex drafts because of it. And I'm willing to trade back. If I have the 101 or 102, and that's where I think they're going to go, I'll gladly trade back, and I'll trade my 101 for 103 plus your second round pick or something like that, or a young asset and acquire picks, because you're right. The Jets are failure city for any quarterback, right? Like it's unless they get some crazy new coach who, they get a Ben Johnson or bring one of these big name coaches, which it doesn't sound like they're going to.
No.
What if they retread the tires on Sexy Rexy?
I mean,
what's his Madden rating?
2010s coaches.
I mean, they're talking about Mike Vrabel right now. Like, okay, cool. I don't want that. I mean, is Daboll still around for the Giants? No. Like, I think it's a bad situation, but I think they'll be drafted high. And so that's why I think situation matters. So if you take the top 2 quarterbacks, whoever that might be for you, whether that's Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and put them on Jets and Giants, I'll take the guy who goes to a Tennessee team with a different coach, not Tennessee, even with their current coach. I take the Tennessee guy over the Jets and Giants guy with the coaching situations unknown for all those teams. And even though the talent around them is better in the Jets and Giants, I'll take the Tennessee guy because I think the situation is so much better.
This season is one of the cool things. Like, so for me in fantasy drafts, and I would recommend, as you start looking at it, the quarterbacks, to me, like, this is a year like where you could see like Tennessee, take, like a Quinn Ewers and a Will Howard and like let them battle it out, right? Or like, like you could go and you could get somebody in the 3rd or 4th round, or not in fantasy, obviously. Like, they can get a player in the 3rd or 4th round of the NFL draft that could absolutely be like a Brock Purdy starter to go in and compete against Will Levis and take that spot. It's like there's so much of that out there this season. And so, I think that the combine, I think that, all of that will play a big piece. I mean, even Will Howard right now is ranked in the bottom. Like, you got Sanders, Ward, Milroe, Beck, Ewers, Dart, Gabriel, even all above Howard. But if Howard sits there and takes Ohio State, he plays like he did last week and he takes Ohio State to, the national championship, that changes, right? And like, it's going to be interesting at the quarterback position. I don't think it's as set as like the wide receiver position is, but in Superflex drafts, I think that for the first time in a while, you're going to have options in the 2nd round probably, and maybe even early 3rd round that could actually start for a team. Because there are so many, we're like, it's like the changing of the guard. We're seeing so many of our players that we watched, like our Kirk Cousins and our Aaron Rodgers, our Geno Smith, that we watched for so long, that are now phasing out. Even Darnold, like they may keep Darnold for another year and let him play, but they also drafted their quarterback
and they traded up for him.
And they're not going to trade him. And anybody who says they're going to trade him this offseason is stupid.
No, they're
hands down.
And
so,
Dustin
like, we're going to see that, and there's so many teams that need quarterbacks. Freaking the Browns don't know what they're going to do. It's just going to be interesting. So I'm excited to see how it all kind of folds out and plays out. And Will Papane said, "Hey guys, thanks for answering my questions, fellas. I'm a huge Broncos fan, and I didn't draft Bo Nix for my fantasy team, but I am starting him with confidence this week in the championship game." You do it, and you're not alone. Bo Nix was a surprise for most people. If you look across the league, you look at analyst takes, everybody said Bo Nix he didn't have it. He was old because he played so long in college. Like, the only thing that they said positive about him coming into the league was, he was going to have more game experience than anybody else, but he's come out and, I think the thing that we were all surprised about was how much of a competitor he was, and how, and I feel like that's been the driving behind his performance is that, I'm here to compete. I'm here to prove people. And, I was surprised. I think most were surprised.
Yeah, most were surprised because the situation wasn't great either. I mean, he had Cortland Sutton and then nobody. So it wasn't like he had a great team around him either. So he's made it work. And I'll say one more thing about the rookies or the prospects coming in. I'm going to be curious to see what San Francisco does, because Brock Purdy will be a free agent after next season. So do they go out and draft a guy this year in a deep class in the 3rd or 4th round? That's someone I'm going to scoop up in the 3rd round of my rookie drafts and taxi squad him for a year. And then he could go out there and be on a team with Ricky Pearsall and maybe an aging Debo or an Ayuk, or who knows what happens there. If they can get another young guy and move from Purdy after this season coming up, 2026 could be the starter. They could be drafting the starter for 2026 in this draft. So San Francisco.
There's no way that they would do that, but then they also drafted a kicker in the 3rd round a couple years ago. So.
Yeah, you never know.
You truly never know, and I'm glad you said that, Dustin, because as we're talking about this QB class, so many of these guys just scream taxi squad. Like, this is why you have a taxi squad. You know?
That's
Like,
exactly why.
Just park them on there a year or two from now. Maybe they develop into something. Maybe they
And
don't. But
drop
yeah,
Jalen Hooker when he goes to the practice squad before the season starts, like I did.
Yeah, right.
I was like, oh, they cut him. Whatever, this is done.
Dennis said they need more consistent running back to take pressure off Knicks. We got to get away from these committee teams. I think that you'll see the committees aren't going anywhere. I think people want that role. You see the Sonic and Knuckles tandem, and
Sean Payton's been doing that for years, though. I mean, even when you had Mark Ingram and Kamara like coming in, like that's just his thing.
Yeah,
it's just been successful in so many places. Your running backs stay healthier longer throughout the season. I think more people are just going to lean that way. Even like the Steelers wanted to do it with Najee and Warren. Just Warren wasn't healthy all season. So it's like I think you're going to see more of that. I think that they want to see that. Unfortunately, it sucks for fantasy, but that is what it is. We got football saying let them know about the playoff challenge. We will let you know. It should be dropping in our newsletter next week, along with we'll have signups on the show. So be looking for that. We'll also post it on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. But anyways, let's see here. Maybe Sean Payton has his eyes on one of the Notre Dame backfield. Who knows? Sean Payton.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me with Sean Payton. I mean, just draft another guy, and he's also one of those guys that I think has the luxury of being able to take a risk in the early rounds because he's got job security. So he may go out there and take another running back and go, hey, I'll roll out whoever I want, and it's going to work. I mean, if you make the playoffs and you have 10 wins, the owner's not going to care.
Who needs another wide receiver when you have an 8-man running back committee?
Yeah. Well, maybe Troy. I mean, as much as I don't like Marvin Mims, maybe Marvin Mims can be something.
Maybe,
right. Probably not, but maybe.
Maybe. We see it. I mean, definitely made a statement towards the end of the season there. Well, look, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We appreciate the wild dreams of let Saquon go to Denver. That's not going to happen. But we can all hope and pray for our favorite teams to, have something magical happen, like wish upon a star and it work out. I don't know. But super glad that you guys tuned in. Masters Football got you Dad Bod or Andy on the platform. Appreciate everybody tuning in. You guys always killing it. We're going to keep this show going through the off season and I'm looking forward to getting into rookie content. It's one of my favorite parts of the season. I love analyzing film. I love talking about how people translate into the next portion of the league. So hopefully that helps you guys in your dynasty get ahead of the curve when it comes to Dynasty Fantasy Football. But anyways, thank you again for tuning in. If you guys would just let them know where they can find your content and we'll close it out.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the DUnit13. Check me there. That's where I post all my written content. Any podcast I do a podcast Tuesday nights called Bridge the Gap Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern.
I am Fantasy Nav on Twitter. That's where all of my work rolls up into this year. I am creating content for the IBT Media Group. I'm part of the In Between Fantasy Football podcast every single Tuesday night. I'm also writing the wide receiver cornerback matchup article for the Fantasy Alarm this year. Every single wide receiver cornerback matchup every single week. It is a massive piece and a ton of cool little nuggets in there. And I also joined the charting team over at FTN. So if you're using any of their tools, any of their statistics, I am in the background helping contribute to the charting that leads into that.
Wow, I got to follow that. That's crazy. Two legends in the house. I mostly post memes during game days. Joe Frick, JoeyFRK. We do around the 412 Fantasy Football show on Wednesdays, usually around 6 p.m. Eastern. Probably going to kick it back to like once a month now that we're in the off season. I do post some stuff on the Fantasy Advice Network, of course. And then I'm also in the Reddit streets, even though apparently that's frowned upon here, but I'm lurking in there. I'm a top 5 R fantasy football contributor. So
Nice.
You know, I don't mind the Reddit streets. You know, it's okay. You know, you have home, and then every now and then you want to go out and you want to go, you know, play in the filth a little bit.
Hey, you know
gotta-
what? I
you
will say
want to go
about
hang out
Reddit,
on
though,
Bourbon Street. Yeah.
I love posting articles to Reddit first because if you have a typo, if you
Oh, yeah.
misspeak or anything, you will find out immediately.
Instantly.
And people are on your ass about it. It's crazy. But so it's like usually I'll post it there, give it like 20 minutes. If I got like nothing negative outside of like the ordinary stuff, then it's like, all right, like it's ready for everybody else. So it's
early shout out to the lady Frick for having her baby. We hope everything comes out for you, Joe, and your wife. So
yeah, appreciate
early
that.
congratulations whenever that happens.
See.
Oh, what a way to put that. We hope everything comes out great for you.
Yeah, it comes out
and
great,
your
you know.
lady.
Comes
That's
out.
very culturally appropriate in 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we do. Congratulations on that, and hope everything's smooth. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, and you know, as we, you know, usually we hope you win. We hope you have had a killer season, and we look forward to you know, leading you through the off season. We'll see you next week at 9:00 Central on From the Forum. You guys have a great night. Peace.
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com.